Okay, so apparently there's absolutely no good way of doing this, so this is what we're going to get. It's going to be thrown together like this. There are going to be lots of and lots of looking at my notes and stuttering and stumbling over words, because if I don't do it this way, I'm never going to do it at all. So let me get comfortable, because I'm sat on my ankle. I always sit down like that. I check everything there, because we've got a lot of talking to do about various things. This is the mental health stuff that I always wanted to talk about. If you've been following me for long enough, you'll know I've talked about it a lot. I've had mental health problems for years. The reason why I've had mental health problems for years is because I've been misdiagnosed for years, and it's been really difficult dealing with actual problems when you're being treated for something that you haven't actually got. That's something I've only recently discovered, and it's something that I feel I should talk a lot more about, specifically, not just part of something else. Whenever I've talked about mental health problems, it's always been very well received. Just talking about stuff helps people out no end, and it gives them another resource to draw from and another person's experiences to listen to. So with that in mind, I want to talk about what I've been going through over the last year. Don't worry, this isn't actually sad. This isn't a somber, serious experience. I don't think that talking about mental health problems should necessarily be some sort of self-pity party and oh, woe is me thing. There's a poorliness, an illness. It's a mental illness. That's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. I didn't do this to myself. Why should I be sad about it? The best thing to do is to just talk about it and say what it's like and talk to other people who have it and see what they feel like, and they can listen to me, and then we actually start getting somewhere and feeling better. Honestly, I know it sounds a bit silly right now, but bear with me. If you're not interested in this sort of thing, fine. I totally understand. I talk about game stuff and movie stuff as well, and this is sort of way out there. But it's important for me to cover, because I think it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to talk about, but I don't feel that barrier. So I should probably talk about it, right? So let me give you a bit of a recap of me. I always thought I had depression, like I was depressed. I felt sad and I didn't know why. That turned out to be rubbish. You see, it started when I was 18. I'd just gone away to university and couldn't handle it for one reason or another, and was diagnosed with depression. I think I was put on Prozac at the time. After a little while, I felt a little better, was taken off antidepressants and felt okay for a bit. Then everything came back. I got put on antidepressants again, and the cycle continued like that for the next sort of 22 years. Eventually, somebody, and I can't believe this took so long, but somebody had the knowledge to say, you don't have depression for 22 years. This is ludicrous. This is insane. It's like having a headache. You take paracetamol, it goes away. If it doesn't, it's something else. And this was still here. I didn't have depression. I was never depressed. I didn't want to not get out of bed. I couldn't not get dressed, or I wasn't not feeding myself or looking after myself. I just felt all these other things. It took a lot of talking and a lot of getting to the bottom of things before it was clear that I was actually displaying symptoms or markers of a couple of personality disorders. That's the bit that people find difficult. It's a personality disorder. It sounds horrible. It's not great, I'll be honest with you, right? I would rather be living without it. But again, it's not something to be embarrassed about or upset about. I didn't do this to myself. You know, this isn't a stupid thing that happened. I didn't decide to do it. And I know it sucks. And I would like very much to not have these problems. So the two personality disorders that I have are borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. It's an interesting combination. It's not uncommon, according to things I found online. It's sort of between 4 and up to 40% of people with BPD also have NPD. That's the shortening of them, by the way, because you can't just say borderline personality disorder forever. So what I want to do is sort of talk about the issues faced by these two conditions. Not just today, but going forward. You see, there's a lot to cover. That's what was difficult about making this video. I've got a 2,500 word script on the screen in front of me. I'm way past where I'm at, you can see on the screen, but the plan was to sort of organize it and just talk through it and maybe do a bit of voiceover or something like that. But it's so convoluted and so long. I just have to sort of ramble at you like this and have email messages come through like that. You see, now you know it's real. So I just want to talk about each of those two things to start with and just say what they are and what that's like a bit and how I've come on since discovering that I had those things. And then in later shows, I'll talk about the specific problems, how these markers of these disorders manifest themselves in real life and things I've learned to deal with them and become a tiny bit more normal. So I'll do BPD first, and I have to actually go back to my original notes now. Where are we? So the way personality disorders work is they have a series of markers. These are sort of indications that you have this thing, okay? You could have all of them or some of them. People might display a few of them without actually displaying enough of them to be classed as having this disorder. So if you hear a couple and think, hey, I do that, it's entirely possible you do, but it doesn't mean that you've got one of these personality disorders. But BPD, there are 9 markers and you have to have 5 at any one time. Now, there have been plenty of times when I've had all 9, but they come and go. Sometimes you'll display all of them, sometimes one, maybe if you can get it down to none, you're lucky. These sorts of things never really seem to go away. They just get handled differently from time to time and more effectively from time to time. So the 9 markers of BPD are classed as, excuse me, I'm reading by the way, fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, unclear or shifting self-image, impulsive and self-destructive behavior, self-harm or suicidal ideation, extreme mood swings, chronic feelings of emptiness, explosive anger, and feeling out of touch with reality or dissociation. You have to have 5 of those at any one time to have BPD. Like I say, I had all 9. As I sit here now, I've reduced it to a couple, and I'll talk about those in more detail as I say going forward. Some of them are very obvious how they play out. Some of them are a little more mysterious. And most people are wondering, what the hell is dissociation? That's a fun one. And we'll come back to it. I know you haven't taken all that in. That's just a random list of things that I've thrown at you. But it gives you some idea as to what sort of stuff we're talking about. I'll do the NPD ones now. And you'll see that they're actually quite different. As I categorize it, the BPD markers are all about how you feel about yourself and how you treat yourself. The NPD markers are all about how you treat other people. Effectively, this is the one that makes you a total arsehole. So the 9 markers of NPD are a grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success or power, a need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitative behavior, a lack of empathy, envy of others or a belief that others are envious of them, and arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. That is otherwise classified as everything you need to run a podcast network. When we look at what happened with Simply Syndicated, I did. That's what went wrong. All of those 9 things I've just read to you were swimming around in my brain in full force. The tricky thing with them is that you actually need some of them. To some extent, we've all got all of them. A tiny bit. You see, you need self-confidence. You need emails coming through and interrupting things. I'm so sorry, but you need that self-confidence. You need self-belief. You need to be your own cheerleader sometimes. The trouble is when you think you're brilliant and there are people there that go, yeah, you are. And there's only so many times you can hear that before you really start believing your own bullshit. And when you do that in tandem with another personality disorder that was there before, things start to get kind of tricky and make life really complicated. Let me give you an example. So there are certain things that are the opposite of each other, that cancel each other out with these two disorders. The example I always give is a reaction to a headache, right? You get a headache. I get headaches. We all get headaches for various reasons. You have a glass of water and some painkillers, the headache goes away. That's how most people deal with it. If you've got BPD, you might start to catastrophize everything. Look for the very worst possibility, the worst outcome that could possibly be. That isn't a headache. That's a brain tumor. It's the size of a large orange and you're going to die sometime in the next 6 hours. That's what that headache is. And so you have to sit and tell yourself, it's just a headache. Then on the other side of the fence, you've got NPD. The side of your personality that is so far up its own arse that it technically doesn't believe that cancer would fucking dare. The two cancel each other out in a wave pattern. So you get to sit there pretty normally thinking, well, it's probably just a headache. I'm not immune to cancer and that's probably not it if I wasn't. So there you go. Sometimes, however, the two complement each other. They have similar traits that result in similar actions. So, for example, part of BPD is worrying that you're a burden on people, emotionally, in a friendship kind of way. They all hate me, really. They don't want me around. They don't want to know me. They'd all have a better time without me. They're going to cut me off eventually, aren't they, right? Because they don't really like me. There's going to come a time when I'm just not on that email list. I don't get that phone call. They're going to cut me off. And then NPD comes along and says, well, you're better than them anyway. What the hell do you need people like that for? They're so beneath you. Cut them off now. Don't give them the satisfaction. And so you end up cutting people off. And that can happen in the blink of an eye. People with BPD just split on things. Everything's either perfect or garbage. It sounds like various people I've known or heard about, but that's what we do. We either think you're amazing or we hate you because you've done something to us. None of it's based in fact, none of it's rational thought, none of it's real, but it's just what our brain churns out at us. Eventually, the only thing that actually helped me was talking about it, analysing it and being challenged. Why did I feel like I did? Where were these feelings coming from? The best therapy turned out to be group therapy, not medication or anything like that. Just sitting in a room with people who all suffer from similar, if not the same, problems. Telling them how you feel, having them say, I feel the same way, but I feel like that because of this reason. And then having them ask, so why do you feel like that? And having to look at it and realizing that these feelings are kind of fictional. And all the things we have to do to deal with them that we didn't know we were doing. It's been a long road. And there's a lot of detail to go into. There are a lot of problems faced by people with these disorders. But they're possible to be dealt with. You can learn behaviors. You can get better. I don't have all 9 markers of NPD as I sit here today. That would be crazy. A lot of work has been done. A lot of progress has been made, and I'm near to being a functioning individual at the moment. Perhaps the best I've ever been as an adult. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's a possibility of help. So hopefully by talking about stuff, by challenging thinking, and by saying why I feel these things, other people can hear and share their own experiences. So I realize I've gone on for quite a while now, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for listening if you made it this far. Again, please don't worry about... Whenever I talk about these problems, there's always a lot of sympathy. And while that is very much appreciated and understood, it's okay. Really. There are ways through this, and I'm talking about dealing with it. It's not a look for sympathy and oh, woe is me kind of plead to the world, somebody help me. I've got the help, and now I'm kind of thinking, by sharing the help I've had, I might be able to help other people. If you've got similar problems, let me know. Talk to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know where to take this, if there's a direction people would like me to take it. Until next time then, I guess I'll see you later, and I hope you're well and staying safe. And yes, I know what's going on with my hair. We're like 12 weeks into lockdown, for God's sake. Bye-bye.